Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning I'd like to highlight one of the really interesting towns of West Texas as we continue the journey through the 23rd District, which encompasses nearly 24% of the land area of Texas, some 800 miles from one end of the district to the other. With a population of over 800 people, Sanderson, Texas is known as the cactus capital of Texas. It was originally named Strawbridge or Strobridge, and Sanderson was founded as a switching point for the Southern Pacific Railroad. In 1882, a roundhouse was built there, and the name of the town was changed to Sanderson after Thomas P. Sanderson, who was the engineer in charge of construction. In the following year, in 1883, a post office opened in Sanderson. In Texas lore, there's a very famous person by the name of Roy Bean, who was known as the law west of the Pecos. And Judge Roy Bean, who wanted to capitalize on the new town with a lot of promise, he opened a saloon in Sanderson in the early 1880s. But he couldn't compete with Charlie Wilson's Cottage Bar Saloon. After Bean opened his saloon, Wilson allegedly spiked the whiskey with coal oil, and Judge Bean soon had to move eastward to Vinegaroon and Langtree. And Sanderson was dubbed as being too mean for Bean. Those were the years of railroad workers and cowboys which filled the area. At the turn of the century, in 1905, the once unruly Sanderson became the county seat of the newly created Terrell County, and it remains the county seat even to this day. Shortly after becoming the county seat, Sanderson started looking more and more like a town on the move. But as time passed, Sanderson left behind its Wild West origins and became a crossroad, a midpoint, if you will, between San Antonio and El Paso. The courthouse was built in 1906, and near the courthouse, some years later in 1931, an Art Deco-style high school was built. Sanderson's population continued to grow to about 3,000 people during the first half of the 20th century. Sheep and goats became the main goods as part of the livestock industry, and they are still main commodities of the area today. For example, in 1970, over a million pounds of wool and mohair were shipped out of Sanderson. In 1965, Sanderson was devastated by a flash flood. The usually dry Sanderson Creek overflowed and claimed 24 lives. After the tragic event, 11 flood control dams were built around Sanderson by the Army Corps of Engineers to make sure that that would never happen again. Sanderson was built around the railroad, and its fate has largely been determined by the railroad, and a series of decisions altered decisively Sanderson's growth. During the 1970s, the new construction of Interstate 10, I-10, bypassed Highway 90, and it bypassed Sanderson. It left Sanderson out of its path. In addition, Union Pacific later moved its crews from Sanderson to Alpine. These had a detrimental effect on the community, but today, Sanderson remains a small but proud community that fights to maintain its rich history and its tradition of railroads, cowboys, and West Texas. Sanderson High School, known as the Sanderson Eagles, they produce a lot of incredibly talented kids who go to universities from Rice to my own alma mater, Sul Ross State University in Alpine. In fact, many of the kids that I went to Sul Ross with were from Sanderson, Texas, and many of their teachers have degrees in Sul Ross. In more recent times, Sanderson has put out a number of people. My immediate predecessor in the legislature, Judge Dudley Harrison, was from Sanderson, and Chago Flores, who is the first Latino elected county judge in the history of Terrell County and is serving even now. So if visiting, I want you to know that you will have access to an extensive variety of memorabilia at the Terrell County Memorial Museum. And I want you to know that Sanderson is still the cactus capital of Texas and the east gate to the Big Bend wilderness area. I invite you to stop by Sanderson if you're ever visiting the 23rd District of Texas. Mr. Speaker, thank you so much for the time, and I yield back the balance.
The gentleman